Level Up Latina partners with working women and mamas alike to guide them in achieving fulfilling career and life goals through financial empowerment, professional or leadership coaching, and personal wellness. Find the unique coaching you need to succeed.
You're listening to Vero, Ceci, and Irene, and we are Level Up Latina. Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Latina podcast. This is episode 282, and we are excited today to talk about breaking generational cycles. Being first-generation Latinas, coming from strong Mexican Católica families, we thought it would be great to talk a little bit about just generational changes and transforming and what we do and what we don't do any longer as part of the new generation. So before then, hello, Ceci and Vero. How are you doing this morning? All three of us are snacking on something, but other than that, ¿cómo están?
Yeah, I'm snacking on a banana. Tengo frío. Me hubiera hecho un café, pero bueno, yeah.
Mine's in the microwave.
Yeah, I know. I had coffee here in the morning and I had coffee at church, but like church, like I was trying to down it, me quemé la lengua, so I have that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You know when you burn your lengua? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pero aquí estamos, le decía a Vero, I'm like, yeah, I'm not even taking my coat off because I'm cold.
Con frillito, está frescosito. The sun is shining very nicely, pero se antojó ahorita like a little snack. It's just nice. I mean, you know, being able to chat with you girls, like we said, it doesn't happen often. We're doing it a little bit less and less this year, but it's like nice to have a little snacky, keep a little warm, catch up, and talk about like really relevant shit, like, you know, stuff that pertains to our lives. So, and to who our listeners, you know, what they're doing. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. While I'm having my coffee, I'm having a mini panecito mexicano. Pan mexicano, pan dulce. I'm like, why won't the word come to me? Pan dulce. And that's nice. It's nice to each of us have like a little snack on a weekend. We're recording this on a Sunday. We don't usually record on Jesus's day, but here we are. Why is Sunday Jesus's day? It's because the day we go to church, speaking of being Catholics, or we grew up going to church. No shame if that no longer happens. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about just generational cycles and growing and changing. This topic came to mind because I was having a really great conversation with my son who's home from college. We have a family member who's getting a divorce, and she's young, and I'm very close. We have our immediate family, and then we have our secondary family. And meaning like our siblings that we grew up with. So this is one of our siblings that's getting a divorce, and it's radical because it's different in the sense that our children kind of grew up with a lot of people who are either, you know, they were single before they really understood, you know, because they have a grandma that was technically somewhat divorced, not technically, but almost divorced. But they mostly have seen people sort of get together and stay together. So it was an interesting conversation to have with my 18-year-old because when he found out about this person getting divorced, we were at the table just talking organically, naturally, having a really nice lunch with immediate family members about other random things. And that detail came up. And he's, of course, completely aware of what we're saying. We're talking in Spanish because some of our family didn't speak English that was at the table. And so it was funny because I turned and I say, you caught all that, right? He's like, yeah, I speak perfect Spanish. And we're all like, yeah, we know. Okay. And then this family member is so funny. She's like, but if you didn't know exactly what was going on, surprise. And we all like laugh. Like, it's not funny to say surprise, like I'm getting divorced, but he knew all along. He and I happened to leave right after that to go pick up my daughter from theater. And in driving, I was like, so you knew all that already, right? We couldn't talk to you about it. He's like, yeah, I kind of knew. And he wasn't coming around much anymore. And, you know, I always see his family, but I don't see him. Like, I kind of knew that things weren't working out. And then he's like, so, you know, what was it exactly? And I'm explaining to him what it was and some of the things that aren't working. And some of the stuff is like generational stuff that hasn't changed in that relationship, that is from kind of the way parents behaved. And if you don't grow and evolve from that, it either ruins your generation and your marriage, or it doesn't. You choose to not be married. Just getting divorced is a cycle that we break in this generation because our parents tended to not get divorced. So just getting divorced is a cycle that you break. But I was thinking a lot about how me and my son were just like, I said to my son, you know, the gentleman that's getting divorced from our family member, I said, you know, he went through a lot, I guess, as a child and growing up, and maybe that impacts him today and decisions he's making today with his family. And my son said, he's like, I don't know, that once you have kids, you would think, and he's an 18-year-old, you know, I know that his mind is still developing, but he's like, you would think that once you have kids, you know, there's just some things you work on and you change. And I go, you know, Papa, it's easier said than done. Myself, years of being married, I'm not a perfect parent. I'm a different parent to your younger brother than I was to you, you know. And I just loved this conversation that I was having with my child. What in the world? Like, I'm having such a well-adjusted, normal, intelligent conversation about someone getting divorced in our family, and no judgment. If it's good for you, do it. If it's not, don't. You don't have to agree, or you really don't know until you're in it. I was so sitting there like, could I have had this really cool conversation with my mom about someone separating? And I realized absolutely not. Absolutely not. My mom would have been judging till the freaking cows came home, and she would have been picking one side, and she wouldn't talk to me about stuff like that at 18. She didn't think that I even had an opinion, frankly. Yo que sé, no estoy casada, no tengo hijos, yo no sé, like such a different life. And that's the point of generational change and breaking cycles. So that's the long ass story I want to tell you guys about why this came up. But it got me thinking about all the ways in which our generation just changes something. Just changes how the generation before it did it. And in this example, we're going to have I'm going to have at the end someone on both sides of my family, my side, my husband's side, that got divorced. And it's okay. And it was what was right for that family. And they're probably going to be better off for it. And their children are going to be better off for it. And their children may eventually have stepdads and half siblings. And that's kind of cool. Blended family for my Latino family, that always came with drama. It was critical. It was like secret hidden children. People were not going to get together. We're not going to have a blended Thanksgiving. That may be in our family. That may be in our cards. So all that to say, I was thinking today about all the ways in which you've changed your family. What are you doing different than your parents? And it may be a simple thing. It doesn't have to be a dramatic thing. Like, ay, mi mamá le pegaban, a mí no me pegan. Like, I don't mean that. Like, I'm not being abused. I don't mean to laugh. It's like a trauma response.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh either, but I know where you're coming from.
Sad, right? I'm not a battered woman. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't have to be deep. It could be so little, like family dinner, not yelling when you get upset. Like, but what are the things you're doing different? And no judgment to our parents who did the best they freaking could, but they're probably going to get thrown on the bus hard right now. Or maybe not. Maybe you're going to say, my mama taught me this because she broke the cycle. Or my daddy taught me this because he broke the cycle. But what are some ways that your marriage is so different than your parents' marriage, than their relationship? Or your family is so different than the family you grew up in? What are you doing different, Vero, Ceci? Like, what are you doing that like, I'm not going to repeat this. Like, my family of origin did this. We don't do this here. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, might be unconscious, but you're realizing now, wait, we do this different.
I can start. So we have check-ins, like Luis and I have check-ins. We sit together and we plan. We sit together and we do our budget together. In my home, when we were growing up, my mom handled all the finances always. Like, and that's not typical, right? In a Mexican household. I don't know how, I guess I'm like thinking back and talking to my dad and my mom, like in recent years, it was because my mom held my grandpa, her dad, in their business. They owned a gas station, and my mom era la que cobraba allí, and she ran the show there. So I think that's why. So my mom told me this, like maybe like 2 years ago. Like, yeah, I always told your dad, like, oh, I can, or he told me like, hey, you'll handle the finances because you have experience with that. And so then my dad never was never involved. And so I know for a fact that my mom would hide things, like, financially, and maybe le prestaba dinero a hermanos and like things like that. So that's something that I'm definitely not, doing. And we're talking together. We're doing our finances together. I even told them, and us doing our taxes together for our company, like, prompted me to tell Luis, like, hey, let's do our taxes together, because he usually goes to some guy, or he's been doing them himself the last 2 years. I'm like, I'm getting it. So things like that. Another thing that came up, Irene was talking about periods with my daughters, right? My mom never told me. I learned about it through at school in the 6th grade or 5th grade, whenever they teach it to us. That's how I learned about it. And I remember like thinking like, oh my God, but my mom never told me about it. I remember at some point I might have asked like, what is that? When I saw like pads underneath the sink, and she told me like, oh, son toallas para limpiarme la cara. Like, right? Like, she told me that's what it was. So that's what I thought it was until like at school, right? And so recently, maybe about a month ago, maybe longer, my daughters, I heard them talking about, they were watching The Babysitter's Club on Netflix, I think it is, or maybe, I don't know, one of they were streaming it. And they were talking about one of the girls had started their period. And so I heard them talking to themselves. And then I asked them, like, so they were talking about it, like, if they knew already what it was. And so I mind you, I hadn't told them about it. This is right before their birthday. They're still 7. And I asked him like, well, what do you guys know about that? Because I wanted to know. Because at first, like my first reaction was like, what? They know about this? I haven't even told them. But then I was like, wait, let me ask them. ¿Qué saben? And so I can correct it. So I asked them about it, and they said that their cousin, who's 3 months older than them, had told them about it. And then Paula thought that they were going to get in trouble. She's like, I don't know. Samantha knows about it. She's the one that talked to Suli, right? And so I was like, no, okay, well, I was engaging with them, and I looked it up real quick, and it said, like, yeah, when they're 7, 6, 7, like, it's a good age to start talking to them about it. So I sat down with them. I had the conversation I didn't expect that I was going to have that day. But I felt like it was very mature. They were asking me about it. They were asking me, like, Mom, so when are you going to get it? Did you get it in December? Because I think it was at the end of December. Like, did you get it this month? Like, mind you, because we're premenopausal. Like, I'm not on the same cycle that I was before. So one of my daughters now goes, wait, have you gotten it? It's been more than like 28 days. And I was like, I don't want to get into that conversation yet. You're still not there. But yeah, having that conversation early on, and me having that conversation with my daughters was something that I changed from how I grew up.
That's beautiful. That's such a great example of changing a cycle of sort of like secrecy around it, taboo to, have that conversation. Like, it doesn't have to be, it's so natural and normal, but our parents grew up clearly almost even maybe ashamed or wanting to hide it or uncertain, because my mom was very, very worried about it too. And the things she said were actually unhelpful and really like dismissive. But, it's a cycle to now talk to your child like it's no big deal. I talked to my daughter about it pretty candidly and openly, like it was whatever. And I'm like playing it cool, Ceci, but I'm hella uncomfortable and awkward. No one taught us how to do that. I'm playing it so cool, talking to my kids about drugs and alcohol and sex and periods and divorces, but no one taught us how to do that at all. To talk to my son about the problems in a marriage or safe sex, right? Those are more relevant for his age. To talk to my daughter about periods and boys and having your first boyfriend, and talking to the little one about hygiene. Hygiene is probably the easiest of all of them, right? Puberty. But no one taught us. Our parents just sort of let things sort of happen to us, and it was uncomfortable and it was awkward. And I love that the cycle we're changing is making it okay to talk about anything. And even if we don't have really the words, I love that you said, and I suggest this to parents all the time, is don't assume that because they're talking about it that they know more. Like, don't assume that. Ask a lot of questions. And you did that. You asked first, like, get 7, because they might be completely thinking something innocent, and a period just means the first time that you get a bruise on your arm. And you're over here already telling them the whole system, and they don't even know what it actually means, right? So questions is good, but I love that the communication has changed. What about you, Veta? What is one big thing that you're like, we are doing this so different in my family than my original family?
I'm trying to think about that, because I think my parents were like definitely unique in a certain aspect of things. Like, and I got it very different than my older siblings. Okay, my sister, like 7 years older and 6 years older with immigrant parents, very different when the baby comes along, when I came along. But I think for us, with just in particular to my parents, I'm not too open, but I'm definitely open with them. So the whole period thing, like, they've seen me in the restroom and like on my period, because they're still little, so they just walk in wherever they want, and they're like, ¿Qué es eso, mami? ¿Estás bien?
Your kids, right?
Yeah, my kids.
Your parents.
Not my parents.
Yeah, the transition in that sentence was a little
sorry.
weird. But
I know,
like,
sorry.
Wait, she said her parents were different.
Mija, ¿qué estás haciendo? Cagando.
I know. My dad inserted my first tampon.
Like, I remember when I wore a tampon, my mom was like, "What are you doing? Eso no es para muchachas, que no sé qué." And she was like, "You're not using these, right?
You're not using these. Estos son para las señoras casadas."
I was like, "Oh,
that was
God.
mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mine.
So my children have seen me, because they walk in, they own the house, they run this world. I'm just living in it. But they've
they own the house, they're on the TV, they pay the mortgage.
They pay the mortgage. They work already, so that's a little different from my parents, But I'm trying to think, in particular to anything different. Like right now, I allow them to interrupt me. Hold on. Yo, para que entre el aire, papá.
Oh, mami.
Mande.
Yeah, los niños no dejan, a veces. So, like, when you're in the bathroom, y se dan cuenta, or like, oh, porque se ve. My girls had asked me before I talked to them, like, what is that red? And I would always say, oh, it's because I ate beets. You know how when you pee?
Oh, that's right.
I would say that. So then, one of my daughters, Paula, she's very clever. Now that she knows, she's like, wait. She's like, so those times that you said that you ate beets, it wasn't, huh? And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't. That's bien. Es bien lista
right.
esa niña.
I know, no, it's beet juice. It's not beet juice. But I think one of the things I do tell the kids is like, I need your help. We are a team. I need your help. It's 4 of them. It's really hard to get them going in the morning, get them, like waking up 4 kids with 4 different personalities with, everyone had a different amount of sleep and they don't, some of them are a little more sluggish than the others. But I pretty much like tell them like, hey, like, yo soy su mami, yo sé que no, pero nomás hay una mami y 4 de ustedes, and I need your help. I need your help. Help me put your shoes on. Help me put, well, obviously, tus calzoncitos, déjate limpio tu booty, or like, things like that. Like, let me help you, but you help me as well to kind of make things easier. Like, reminding them we're a team. I don't think my parents had to remind me that we were a team and that we were a family. I knew it, but for me, it really helps to be like, hey, just how you need me, I need you to help me as well. So that's something I definitely do different with that. And then for me, I'm like, what else? I mean, talking to them, obviously, like, hey, trying to understand. I think it's very different too, because my parents didn't know what it was like to be a kid and going to school in the US, right? Or doing homework or doing activities. So for me, it's like, I think we have a little bit more awareness than like what our parents did. So it's more like asking about like, okay, so who, made you upset today, or who made you happy? Who made you laugh? Who talks to you most? Because not everyone that you hang out with are going to be the people that are your best friends, right? There's going to be people around you that make you feel a certain way, but you allow them to be your friend. So kind of having them open up about it and seeing that, like, I'll give you an example. Like Joaquincito, there's this one little kid at school that he always like hits Joaquin, always hits him, like kind of like very bullyish, but he's also like Joaquincito's like a bigger kid than like the average kindergartner, right? So this kid just like hits him a lot and makes him feel bad. So I would ask him like, oh, who are your friends? And he would like name this kid. But then when I would ask him questions like, oh, so who made you laugh? Who made you sad? Or who made you feel like upset today? Like just little questions like that. This kid would always come up. His name would come up when it came to feeling upset, feeling sad, or feeling like a certain way. And it was always this kid. I'm like, so, I'm like, hey, help me understand. ¿Por qué es que es tu amigo? Me dices que esa persona es tu amiga, pero cuando te pregunto que cómo te hace sentir, siempre te hace sentir mal, or he hurts you or something. Like, that's not a friend, papi. Like, having to explain that, right? And so I think that's a little bit of a difference with the way our parents would communicate with us. It was more like, okay, you go to school, you go to this. Sometimes our parents would let us play sports, sometimes they wouldn't, especially when we were younger, they'll let us be involved or not. Like, but I think that for me, it's been a lot more of like, hey, let me get to know what my little child is, what's in their brain. And you kind of have to ask the right questions, right? Ask the questions to kind of get to it. So I think that's a little bit of what I'm slightly doing different than my parents.
For sure. Veda's not giving herself enough credit. I think she's so humble about it all. I'm more than confident that the way you're raising your kids and communicating with them is different than, even though your parents were, it sounds like a little more well-adjusted than maybe mine. I see a lot of the differences in how we're all raising our kids. I had written in my notes, and Veda pretty much covered it, but like just the way we treat our kids now, like little human beings, how you said you ask them for help. That's such a great way to also give them respect, not disrespecting their intelligence. They understand help. They can learn that. I think our parent generation just thought we were kids and took for granted that we were very capable and we could understand how to give back and how to help. In an earlier episode, we talked about kids doing laundry and doing dishes, and they can do it much younger. I came from a family where my mom just kind of did everything for the kids, did everything for the man. And just, that doesn't mean that I couldn't have washed my own clothes. Like my mom washed my clothes, and I got to college and washed my own clothes, right? I was taught how, but I could have been washing my clothes since I was younger. But there was such service and so indebted to us and giving to us. And I love that, but I was saying, no, like the kids can help. We're a team. We can do it together. My mom wasn't like that. Like we weren't a team. She was really carrying the family in more ways than one. And I'm not raising the family to work that way. We work more like a team. We talked about that on the episode before, so I won't talk too much about that. But I think one area in my family where we definitely are breaking generational cycles is communication, and just how we communicate in terms of being direct and not avoiding healthy conflict. My husband comes from a family who they're very close, but they avoided direct conflict. Like things sort of get swept under the rug for the sake of peace. I came from a family that had a lot of conflict because there was conflict and there was like battling and fighting and tension and drama, and it was a toxic environment. So they thought they were communicating, but it was like a lot of yelling and screaming and fighting. So neither one of those is necessarily right, because screaming and yelling and fighting is toxic. Sweeping things under the rug for the sake of peace, if your dad is the one who says, this sky is green today. You all agree that it's green because it's peaceful to keep agreement. That doesn't work either. So Diego and I came together and we get to be like the other family in a healthy way. So I get to be the kind of person that we don't have to talk about everything. We can let some things go. We can keep the peace, right? I learned that skill, and we don't have to yell if we talk. I've learned that skill, and I can teach that to my kids, right? And we're faithful to each other, and we don't use violence in our home. Like all the things that I get from Diego's upbringing is beautiful. He gets from my upbringing a family that is very vocal, that is very loud and wants to talk about things, but it has to be healthy. It can't be unhealthy. So it's been really good for us to teach our kids healthy conflict and to share their feelings. And it started when they were young. Like, you can be angry. You can be sad. You can cry if you're a boy. You can speak up and defend yourself if you're a girl. Teaching our kids that they can communicate healthfully has been so cool. And them watching us do it as leaders has been really cool. So at work, Diego and I both have jobs that require us to be the human resources of our organization. We're both entrepreneurs, so we have to have so much discipline for our own business to make money. And it's like such cool things that our kids are seeing us be direct, trying to close a sale, trying to write up a staff that isn't performing, trying to deal with difficult people at work, like whatever it may be. The kids are watching us be leaders. You're a leader of your home and you're a leader at work. And in both areas, you can't sweep conflict under the rug. You can't be like passive aggressive. My mom, now that I look back on it, was pretty passive aggressive. I didn't know that growing up. I didn't know that was like being passive aggressive, but it's not enojada. It's not just kind of backhandedly telling you. They're not really telling you why they're overwhelmed. They're resentful. You don't know what the fuck's going on. You're just, she mad again. And they lay on the guilt. But I mean, again, our parents didn't know how to speak on it. So I can tell the kids if I'm burned out or overwhelmed or sad, or me and dad were arguing. Like, I love that you can say it. Like, I was arguing with dad today. We see things differently. We're working that out. Like, just to be able to say that, how refreshing. And they see, like, it's okay to argue with your partner. It's okay to not always be happy. I love that the kids can learn. You can communicate that you're unhappy. Like, that's okay. You can't always be unhappy. Like, you got to work on that, right? But all feelings are welcome. And it starts with being able to communicate all feelings. So I love that that's different in my family. And by the way, I don't even know. Half of it was done without us realizing. I think Diego and I come from, though, we just wanted to do it a little bit different than our parents, right? So after some awareness and time raising them, and we have an adult child, we realized, oh, we did do that right. We're actually doing that on purpose. That's intentional. But guys, half of it we didn't know. And that's why we do this podcast. It just appeared one day and we realized, oh, I guess we just communicate different than our parents did. So healthy conflict's okay. We respect our kids' intelligence and we respect their feelings here. We try not to yell when we communicate. That's super hard for me because I grew up in a family that yelled. But that's a cycle we break here. We work on it every day. And then I wrote this down before this morning. I was going to tell you guys a story. I wrote this down and I was like, oh, that's so cool because it's literally happened this morning. And I wrote these notes like yesterday or whatever day we came up with this topic. I had put on one of my notes of a cycle that we break. It's okay to spend money on nice things. So that's another cycle that we break. My mom was always saving and being frugal when she had to be. She always had like broken stuff and it didn't work. And you had to like jimmy it to work. But it's la pobreza. It just teaches you to make it work. You're going to drive that car. It's falling apart. It's all good. And my husband and I did it early in our marriage. We're going to drive that car and it's falling apart and it's all good. But at some point I realized money is here for me. There's money to be made. I can have nice things. I don't need to feel guilty that I want nice things or that this meal costs a lot or this purse costs a lot. And I'm not I don't have a lot of fancy things, but if it is fancy and I want it, like, I don't want to feel guilt about having it. And I know my mom spent a lot of time probably limiting herself, traveling far too late when she could barely walk and see because she didn't want to spend on herself. And that's something that I don't want the kids to ever feel afraid to invest in their life and their fulfillment and their joy. Travel's like ridiculous. My kids are a little bit ridiculous now where they think travel's everybody's lifestyle. That's one little area where I just think was that's like outside of what I'm trying to say right now. That's just different, but spending on yourself. So I had written that. And then just this morning, we're having breakfast. Right before this, we're all eating. And my husband says, hey, let's go have fun at a fancy steakhouse. I'm like, sure. He's like, okay, we're taking you guys out. You guys are dressing up. We're going to a fancy steakhouse tonight. Because for Valentine's, we went to a really nice steakhouse that we like, a different one. And we were just grubbing. Didn't matter what we spent. And it's beautiful to live like that. But we like to expose the kids to that. And I have taken the kids. And me and Diego have taken the kids. But I don't know that any five of us have been together out at a fancy dinner. And we were just having that conversation. Like, the five of us never do like the fancy steakhouse. And Diego says, why are we doing that, you guys? Why are we going to a fancy steakhouse tonight? And I say, that was the first. Because we belong. So we know we can have that. Like, exactly. Why else, you guys? And then one of them, either Sophie or no, so we can be comfortable. And then I was like, because it's good. So we like laughed about it. But it is true. It's so nice to be able to break that cycle that like you can work hard to have nice things and spend your money after you've worked hard to have it. Like, you deserve that. And then I very casually said, yeah, Dad and I, we had like a $330 steak the other day. And their face is just like, like $330 to a little kid is like a lot of money. And I was like, oh, and the Caesar salad at this place. And Diego's like, oh, they brought out this cart. And even just talking about spending money like that on Valentine's is great. Like, it's breaking a cycle, not in a showing off way, but in like, this is our lives, right? We deserve these lives. He's like, they bring out the cart, they make it in front of you, the oils, the cheeses, the mustard, the ketchup. He's lying now, right? Obviously, mustard and ketchup in a Caesar salad. And Isaiah's cracking up. I love Caesar salad. They started saying all kinds of random ingredients. It was just like really, really funny because like that was not a Caesar salad. And Noah's face is just kind of like, what are they talking about? Because Isaiah loved the joke. So Isaiah was like, the steak, the this, and that inside the salad. Anyway, spending money on nice things. I had just written that I feel that the family is breaking that cycle. And then here we are having a nice, very humble eggs and bacon breakfast. Diego says, let's go to the steakhouse. We tell the kids why. Why dress up? Why go somewhere expensive? Why? You obviously have to first afford it. You can't go there and live off credit card debt, but they belong there and they deserve good things. They belong there and they deserve good things. And my mom, in her way, did that for us. But I think battling and fighting. Like, she wanted a better life for her kids, right? Our parents come here, they want a better life. They did that for us too, you guys. Like, they believed we deserved a house that had actual real floors and it wasn't of dirt, right? They believed we had a meal that wasn't just tortillas and sal. Like, they believe that we could drive cars. They didn't have them growing up. Like, they did the exact same thing. So that might not even be a cycle we're breaking, but it's just very different. And if we're not careful, we don't realize that our parents did it. They broke cycles. My mom did all kinds of stuff different for me in my life. And I'm looking at her like, oh, she had to beat up washer and dryer. Well, how I started my story? Or, oh, she never wanted to spend money on herself. How I wanted to start my story? But no, she did some dope shit that broke general curses, right? Or generational curses. Now I'm doing the next line of dope shit, right?
That was her legit,
yeah.
At that time, that for the broken washer and dryer,
that was legit dope. She's like,
that was
we
legit,
didn't have no washer. She was like, we didn't have no washer. We washed in El Rio. But my kids, guys, they're going to have 3 properties and 2 boats, and they're going to have a maid, and then they're going to be like, our poor mom. I'm breaking that cycle. But that whole story to say, those are the few things that I think that whether we realize it or don't realize it, we can do it, and it's beautiful and it's good for our family. And let's give our parents credit for the cycles they break. That's the tip of the day. Like, your parent was not perfect. Like, you're not perfect. They also did some pretty great stuff. And you should thank them for that, because it goes a long way to tell your parent, thank you. Like I started my story earlier, my mom did leave that man. She didn't stay married. She didn't get divorced, but she broke up her family for her family's sake. That's pretty badass, right? And it helps my family feel like we can see people thrive as single parents, for instance. But anyway, what other ways do you feel that you're different? Or maybe the last question is, how do you feel you're the same? So that's why I ended with my answer for that. Like, how do you feel you're the same? Like, you did something kind of cool that your generation did, but now it looks different. Like something your mom was, or your dad was, Ceci, or something your mom was, or dad was, Vero, because you tend to say that your parents actually were kind of great. Like, they were a little more modern than our parents, I think. And how are you repeating those cool cycles?
I think for me, like, even though my parents were like, I always call them liberal Mexicans or liberal Catholics, because at the end of the day, they were never like, Diosito te va. It's like, it was, like, it was always like, God loves you. And God, Dios te ama y yo te amo. My parents always were like, I love you. I love you. I love you. My mom and my dad, they would hug us. They would kiss us. They would tell us they loved us. And I feel that, that could easily be like, oh God, leave me alone, or it's too much. But when I would later, as you grow older and you hear like your friends, or you hear people talk about like their relationship with their parents, and I'm like, what do you mean your dad didn't tell you they loved you, like, or your mom, or they treated you like this? And for me, like, I thought it was hella cool that my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I thought that was hecka brave for her to do that, because of course we could have used the second income. Of course my mom could have gone to work. But my mom is to this day is a very smart woman. And she made her choice in the sense of like, she saw her surroundings. She saw where we lived. She saw the people that were involved. She saw that we had family living with us, and it probably wasn't in the best interest for her little daughter to stay home with these, young men at the house, and who was going to be watching me and having to worry about taking care of me. Since, like I said, I was the youngest in our family. My siblings were already in school when I came along. And she's like, by that time she was working, but decided to stay home. So I think in that sense, for me, when I saw my mom being that, I thought, how fucking cool is that? How cool is that? She was always very much like, hey, you want to ditch? Don't ditch. stay home. And if your friends want to stay home too, they can just come here. So she can keep an eye on us, like, nada de tonta mi mami, like, she was just so smart. And I'm like, now I think about it, I'm like, I want to be like that to my children. Like, hey, you know what? I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom, but the one that's gonna say
real.
like, hey, you're not feeling well. That's fine. Stay home and let's get you better. Or like, oh, you're planning to do something with your friends. Hey, they can all come over here. Like, it's fine. Like doing things like that where you're there, but you're not really there. But you're telling them they could do certain things, but because they have your permission. So at the same time, they feel like you trust them. Like it's. I want that. So I think my parents were both very, I share a lot about my dad and giving me advice on my relationships, with my boyfriends. But
so different, so refreshing, by the way.
Yeah.
My dad would have not been caught dead talking about a boyfriend. My dad barely said, I love you. Shit.
My dad barely talked. To this day.
My dad said, I love you once, and Ceci's dad never spoke up.
It's like, uno haciendo la plática de tu papá, ya déjenme en paz, Ándale. But yeah, I feel like, that's like my parents were just, they were cool people. They always were like, hey, if your friends have an issue, they can come stay with us. They can hang out here. They can spend Christmas with us. Like that's who they were. And
I love that about your parents. It's like, it's so cool. Like your parents are like, senior ditch day is all right with me. And now you're repeating the cycle. So Veto's like, I got second grade ditch day, third grade ditch day, fourth grade. All the kids come to her house. just getting cooler by the year.
Getting cooler by the year. But yeah, like I think it was helpful with that. The only thing that I think would have been really helpful is if they would have just had those conversations. Like, I would have avoided a couple, situations in my life as a young adult, as a young woman. Or an emerging woman, you could say, But other than that, like I feel my parents were really legit when it came down to it. And I'm telling you, like I really got a different set of parents by the time I came along than with my sister being the eldest. How they treated her, how she was held up to a different expectation. That they married really young, started her family, all this stuff, and my parents talk about it now because, we were talking about divorce and my sister recently, is finalizing hers and all this stuff. But she's, she has 3 grown women that are her daughters on her side and who along the way of this process in the last 3, I would say 5 years, have recognized how much their mom actually did for them, And it's beautiful to see that, even if it's through a difficult situation, where you learn to appreciate. But I feel that my parents now say like, wow, we should have listened to her a little more. We should have paid attention a little more when she would say something like, hey, I feel a certain kind of way. I kind of just don't want to go back home anymore. I don't, like, I want to stay here. And it says, la que casa quiere, así que ándale, mija, get your shit and go. Take the kids and go back home. Not like, because my mom will take care of the kids, and my dad would be like, oh, mija, it's okay. Go back home. You wanted to get married? Ándale, a su casa. And my mom and my dad now say like, oh, we should have been, we should have listened a little more on that, and asked more questions. Well, what is it? Why? Que no sé qué. They're like, because we know that it gets complicated as marriage is complicated and it's hard. But they're like, we should have kind of listened more, probed more, asked more.
Vero, do they tell your sister that? Qué bonito.
Yeah, they tell her now.
That's so good. At least they validate her now. Like, our parents, they did a lot of things wrong, like all of us as parents. But to be told, like, I wish I would have done that differently, it really heals your sister for the times that she was like, damn, nobody gets it. Like, qué bonito. My mom, I've had moments like that with my mom, very few and far between, where she admits, like, I was human. I could have done it better. And I'll do it for my kids. And qué bonito que your parents in their age are admitting, we saw the red flags. And instead of encouraging you to not be in it, te mandábamos a tu casita. Like, qué bonito that they're validating it now.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's, if I could be like my parents with a little twist and be, if I could just live up to who they are, right? I would, as people, as human beings, I'm fucking killing it, and I know they did a lot. For you.
I love that. I love that you have 2 parents that God, you're killing it if you're like that. That's cool. I hope that my kids say that one day. Qué bonito, Vero. Qué bonito. Yeah. Y tú, Ceci, I know, poor Ceci. It's always different. We always have to honor Ceci's experience being a little different with having her mom in heaven. But how are some ways that you are like your mom and dad, or one thing that you repeat that you're like, you know what, this one wasn't such a cycle that needed to be broken, or maybe something your mom broke for you and now you do it?
So I still yell at my kids like my mom yelled at us. but I try not to. I try not to spank them because
Good.
I don't want to, and it's been a while. I have, I'm not proud of it, but I have. So I try to like just be more calm. And my mom did spank us. She would say, les voy a pegar con la cuchara de madera, like the wooden spoon. She would say, I don't think she ever actually hit us. I don't think she ever actually hit us, but maybe if we like la chancla, like levantaba or whatever. No, actually, no, my mom didn't wear chanclas, but I want to say that
Ay, qué moderna. She didn't wear chanclas.
I know, but I want to say at some point maybe she like threw the la cuchara, but like didn't like knowing that she wasn't going to catch us, pero nomás para asustarnos. So that I try not to do that. I do yell at them, but in the sense of and we talked about this a couple episodes about how I'm trying to do it better, being better, communicating, not yelling at them when I'm like in the kitchen. Ya vénganse a comer, So that's my mom would do that. She would walk out. We'd be playing outside, and she'd stand in front of the home. Niñas, ya véngase a comer, Ya está la comida. So I'm trying not to do that. 2 days ago, they broke a glass in the kitchen because they were messing around, playing around. And I no la regañé. I was like, okay, quítense because se van a cortar. Don't be, because my kids love being barefoot. Like, my kids happened before. No anden descalzas because there's going to be like, even though I swept it up, like, quedan, estillitas de vidrio. And Paula, a few months ago, like, she's like, oh, tengo un vidrio en mi piso, en mi pie, digo. And I'm like, yeah, because you guys are barefoot and, se quebró algo el otro día. So that, I pray. My mom rezaba praying, también todas nosotras rezamos, we're Catholic, so I still pray. My mom era muy devota de San Judas Tadeo, and she passed that on to me. So like, yo le rezo San Juditas. In October es el día de San Judas, el 28, and so I start the novena, and I do it every year, and I do it because I believe, but also because in honor of my mom. So I have I don't think I've ever showed you guys, but I have a little statue of San Juditas that my mom gave me, and I have it in this little, I guess, like pedestal in my closet, and I have it next to una estampita that we gave out at my mom's services, next to with the San Judas prayer, and I have it there. And every morning I go in there and me persino, I say, "Good morning, Mom." I kiss her photo, and and I have like a little, like Christmas lights, como una serie de luces, and I turn it on, and I keep it on. So I'm like that, like the Catholicism, the prayer, like I still keep that. One thing that I'm keeping is, and you guys know this, like taking care of my skin. And my mom always took care of her skin, sus cremas, cuando se pusieron de moda, the whole jade rollers, like she had that, and I'm all about that. So I always remember that all my life growing up, she always take care of herself. Like she would hacía sus dietas, eat healthy, or she would exercise. She would like buy, back then it was VHS videos. She would buy VHS videos y hacía sus videos, ejercicios. So I always kind of like grew up like, with that mentality, like, oh, I need to take care of myself. Like, let me exercise. So she always did that. And then she allowed me to be myself. I'll share more maybe this week or on our Instagram. But last weekend, my sister and I were watching home videos from like 1988. And in those videos, well, one, she's like yelling at us, my mom, and like, ay, Alejandra, this. We were like, what were we doing? But she allowed me to be myself. I'm like singing and performing like canciones de Yuri with mi pelo suelto, and then I always remember my mom like también se ponía a bailar conmigo. Like she would say like, oh, esta cumbia se baila así, and I do that with my own daughters. Like, come on, like let's dance or let's sing, and they're little performers. Like they grab like a lamp that we have in the living room, and they pretend it's the microphone. And they start singing, and les digo yo, suelten más la voz, ándenle, canten. So I'm keeping that in that. One, I'm trying to yell less, that I inherited it from my mom. It's hard because it's like in my genes, I feel. But I'm also keeping that good stuff where she took care of herself and allowed us to be authentic. So un poquito de las dos cosas.
I love that, Ceci. I love both of those. And I think they're so beautiful. Your mom both of you had some pretty modern families. Like your mom, just to the fact that she exercised and took care of her skin and stuff, like, wow, yeah, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool for like the 80s and a Latina mom and raising young kids. Like, I don't remember really having a lot of moms in my life, in my circle at that age, that weren't just like all about their kids. And so like their health was kind of not on the list unless I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know moms like your moms, like your mom. Definitely. I think my family, it's like, that's another cycle we're breaking. Like, they and I are really big on exercise and have a home gym and work out a lot. And so the kids work out a lot, and they want to find something that they like to do. Like, they don't have to do what we do, but my daughter loves to dance and is a big dancer too, and gets like a lot of her exercise out of just being in theater. But nothing like that when we were growing up. And it wasn't about walking or moving well or even eating well. Like, we just ate well that it was actually bad. It was too well. It was too good, too great, too greasy, but perfect, right? So I love that you are repeating that. It's so cool. Like, you are actually your self-care persona that we know. You got it from your mom. That's so cool. Like, learn something new today. And I know that Vero's always gotten this chill perspective from her parents being so love is okay. Like, love is spoken. I think that's really, 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 really cool. And how you brought up religion, both of you did. Vero said, like, you know, there was still love, because our religion, I grew up around a very like Catholic church that was very guilt driven and not love above all. So we're trying to do that with the kids too. I agree. Like, have them be a part of the church, but then have them be a part of the church that's open-minded and not necessarily like bigots themselves and like completely homophobic or against women or sexist, or that. You can keep that. Sorry, Jesus, don't strike me down. But some of your priests, my goodness, some of your soldiers, I don't agree with the speech, but I'm really proud of us, because we're keeping some of the generational stuff. We're doing it in our way. We have a twist on it, which I love. We're also honest about what we can't break. I love that. Sissy said, I still yell. Me too. I am always working on that. I start and I'm like, I know I shouldn't yell. Sorry, I'm going to stop yelling. Okay, let me not yell. Let me start to talk. I have to talk through my patience so they can see, like, she is trying not to yell. But we're all growing and we're breaking some cycles. And the tip of the day again today, I think I said it earlier, it's to just remember that we're doing the best we can. And there are maybe some things our parents did do in their own way. And no matter how crazy our parents were, some of you maybe have some crazy parents out there. Maybe in that way, how crazy they were, believe it or not, maybe you're even better off, because sometimes some really crazy parents out there probably would have been worse if they would have been in your life. And I'm sorry, it's a hard thing to hear. But I definitely have siblings that I know chose a different path, and they repeated cycles and they made the cycle worse. And sometimes I think that my nieces and nephews not being in their lives and not having the parent present is better for them. So it's a weird thing to say, but sometimes the people in our lives that are here or not here, God knows what God's doing, and it's good for you. So I want to encourage everybody to keep that in mind. We have a community and a village here at Level Up Latina. And if anything that one of us said inspires you to maybe have a coach, please look us up, because we're doing the best we can as coaches too, as humans too. So we are humans. We are moms, we are professionals, we are wives, we are all those things, and we are coaches. So if you want to get coaching at Level Up Latina, all three of us are taking clients. Go to leveluplatina.com to learn about us. We have a ton on our website that you can learn about, but you can learn about us and you can sign up. You can sign up for a free assessment with all three of us, with one of us, with two of us, really whatever you want to do. But we love this work and we love helping women through growth. And we've grown a lot, and we are each other's like cheerleaders and helping each other grow. So look us up on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Level Up Latina. That's our handle. If you want to send us a DM or some love on this topic, or maybe the things you've broken or the things you're repeating because it's a cycle your parents broke. And other than that, email us. Anything else that's on your mind, admin@leveluplatina.com is our email. And until then, las quiero mucho. And thanks for being my allies and not yelling and being patient and taking care of our skin. And dancing, and saying love is love, all that good stuff. Las quiero mucho.
Igualmente, besos y feliz mes de la mujer, because it's March.
Feliz mes de la mujer.
Yes.
And Lent is starting. And Monday's on Wednesday. Yeah. Whatever you're giving up for 40 days. Maybe Ceci and I should give up yelling.
I know. I know.
Ceci's face was like,
that is a good one.
It is a good one. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one.